Hey guys, this is Mario and welcome to a session for Photoshop. I want to take a minute here and go over a few things, and we're going to start discussing the difference between a raster image and a vector file. In addition to that, we're also going to go over the view of the screen layout for Photoshop so that you could have the correct tools in place for all the tasks that you're going to be going over. So we're going to take a minute here, and I want you guys to start looking into these sections over here on the right side of the screen. So right here on this area here, we're gonna be very selective of the things that we have, because these are the things that we're going to be using regularly. Okay, and the first one that I think it's probably the most important one, it's going to be properties. So now, in order for these boxes to appear on this side over here, they're going to be controlled over here in your window. So if you come up to the top menu, and this is where we're gonna be going by steps in these areas right here. If we look at Photoshop, we're gonna have these sections up here that have all the different commands that you're going to be doing. And then we have our tools on the left side over here. And we'll go over how to add these into place. And then what I want you guys to take note of is every time we select a tool here, this menu up here changes, right? So these are the particular settings that are going to come up that you can change for that particular tool that you have selected, right? Now, on the top, we said that we have our sections up here where we have all the different commands that we're going to be doing, right? And then on this side over here, we're going to have the areas which are our quick go-to for all the most important things that we're going to be doing, whether if it's something to do with our font right here, which is character. If we want to do anything about properties for a particular object or an image that we have open, these things will control size, they'll control orientation, many other things. And then down here, we're going to have layers. So this is also very important because as we work in Photoshop, we work in layers, and these layers will appear individually down here. The first thing that I want you guys to locate is up here, window. And as you can see, when you click on window, you'll have all of these areas that you could select so that things could come up here. So for example, one of the important ones that you should have is also history. So if I open history, it comes up right here. Now I could put history wherever I want. I could put it right here. And I have it right here next to character, which is important. Now, I don't really need paragraph. It's not really something that I think we should have. So I could come up here and I could close that. And glyphs, again, not probably something important that you want to have up here. So we'll take this one off too. And then I'm leaving just character and history right up here, followed by properties. And then over here we have libraries and layer compositions. Again, these are things that we really don't need either. So I could go to this tab in the corner here and go close. And then I could do the same thing for libraries. I'm going to go close because we don't need that. Okay. And then we have layers. So layers, I want them all on its own because I could adjust the size of these guys. I could also bring properties up here. And now I have really the three most important ones up this way. And then I have my layers down here. So I have room here to actually view everything that I'm looking at. The other area on this side over here on the left, we have our tools. So our tools can also detach. So I can click and drag this toolbox and I can put it on this side. I can put it on the top. I can put it anywhere. I can put it on the bottom. But just as a space saver, I'd like to have them on this side over here. And I want to start with the most important ones are usually here. And you know, you could pretty much select what tools you want to add in and out, bring them in, bring them out, and I like to just kind of guys have you copy these particular tools right here because are important. Here you have we have our text, we have our gradient tool, we have our eraser tool, we have our cropping tool, we also have our marquee. We also have the moving tool, which is extremely important. Also works as a resizer, so we can use it to move an object. We can also resize that object using that. Um, so we're going to go tool by tool here and understand what each of them do as I'm using them for a particular project. And one of the first things that I want you to do that always happens to customers when they are using this particular tool right here, this moving tool, right? Make sure that you have this box selected up here. So remember when I said earlier, when we click here, this area up here changes to match the particulars of that tool. So one of the most important things that we need to have this tool do is to show the transform controls. So by having this clicked, if I have an object in here, I could select that object, right? So that would be one of the most important ones to have. And we're going to continue down this row and we're going to go one by one. But first, let's go over what our most important topic would be, which is we're starting out figuring out what is a raster image versus a vector file.
Okay, let us begin by analyzing the difference between a vector file and a raster. So I'm going to go ahead and open a couple of files here. I'm going to open these two files right here, which we're going to be working with them today. And we're going to go over the main difference between what's a vector file. So a vector file is a file that is composed of shapes, lines, usually a logo for a customer's company, things of that sort. Text, obviously, it's another form of a vector file. While what we end up with a raster file is more of an image that has a lot of gradients in it, kind of like a photograph or a particular file that happens to have photographic effects. So if we are going to if we're going to be working with a vector file, the most important thing for this vector file is to have sharp lines, right? That's what we call sometimes vectorizing a file. So somebody would say, I need to vectorize a file, meaning perhaps the file is blurry or it has low resolution. And because of that, then you'll have pixels here, pixelation right here, right? Instead of a straight line. And obviously we don't like anything with pixelation because then that's going to actually show up in your print. So we're going to go over how we vectorize a file and then the restrictions that we have when it comes to a raster file, and why is it that we're not able to vectorize that file. So these files are usually high resolution because they were created in Adobe Illustrator or Corel or a designer program, or they were just simply the fact that arrived, or they were taken by a photographer with a high resolution camera. So what I would say is the best way to immediately tell, other than in plain sight, that your file has a low resolution is to actually look at what the resolution is. So here in Photoshop, the first thing we're going to do when we open a file, in this case, we're opening a file that happens to be a PNG. So clearly you can see the background is transparent. It doesn't have a color in the background, right? That's important. And then the other thing we're going to go is we're going to go to image size, and then right here we're going to see the size of the file, literally from here to there. That's the width, and then the height is from here to here. And then right beneath that, you're going to see what the resolution is. So never accept anything below 300 dpi from your customer. That's the first rule. Now, if your customer cannot provide you with a file with the resolution at least at 300 dpi, you're going to have to do some work to that file. You're going to need to vectorize it or repair it in some way in order for it to be able to be used for printing. So let's already remember how we get to the place where we check for the resolution, which is right here. Then let us discuss a little bit about how we can vectorize a file. And like I said before, the process of vectorizing a file means when a file is low resolution, it will in fact cause the problems in printing. But how do we vectorize that file is the next step that we need to do. And typically there are programs online, programs that you can purchase, programs that you can pay in subscription that will allow you to vectorize the files, an unlimited amount of files a month, depending on whether you bought the program or you're paying for it monthly. Either way, that's basically how you deal with that. We're going to go over a couple of we're going to go to a couple of programs here, and I like to offer people options when they're doing that. I'm gonna default to Vector Magic. It's a very simple program. You can run it off the website directly. Obviously, you can check your pricing and see whether that's something it's worth for you to pay for it monthly. I think it's like a $9 or $10 per month cost, or you can purchase the desktop option and you can download it and use it unlimited. So check that out. And let's just get a little introduction here. All of these vector programs, and I'm going to show you a couple more that are online, basically take a low resolution file, whether it's in a JPEG, in a PNG, or a GIF file, and then it's going to vectorize it. And then you're going to end up with either a PDF, an SVG, or an EPS file, right? These are all vector styles of files. And these file extensions are going to allow you or not to open it in whatever program you're going to be working with, whether it's Canva or Photoshop or whatever program you're working with. You may run into a restriction depending on what file extension you're dealing with. So we're going to go ahead and just test the vectorization. Let's just give it a test here. Let's grab a file that we could actually use. Let's say, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and open something that I already have here that I vectorized recently, which is this guy right here. This is a very simple file, right? So right here, what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a file that, as you can see right here, you have discoloration and you also have a lot of pixelation, right? So we're basically just taking all of these imperfections and ironing it out completely, and that's kind of what we want. We have 3 levels of vectorization depending on how much quality you want to do. You also have a tool here to remove the background, which is good. I would then, if I'm happy with the medium detail, I will proceed to download the results. And then right here is where you get to pick what it is that you want to do. You want to do a PDF file, an SVG file, or an EPS file. And quickly, let me run through these options for you so you guys understand. If it is a PDF file, you can pretty much open that in any program. I mean, that's kind of like a universal file format. You can email it to your customer. You could open it in Photoshop, in Corel, in Canva. You can pretty much open it in any of those programs. These other two file extensions are a little bit different. Some programs may not open those, right? So EPS is typically a vector file from Adobe. You are going to open it in Illustrator, or you can open it in Photoshop. You can also open it in Corel. But you may run into some issues depending on the program. Let's say you're working with Silhouette Studio or Cricut Creative Studio, or let's say you're working with any other of one of these programs that are out there that are designer programs, you may run into an issue there, or you may have to purchase an additional license to be able to access those styles of files. And SVG is basically a cutting file. You can open it in Photoshop or Corel, but the only problem, and possibly Canva, but again, you may run into some. Let's say you have the most basic program when it comes to Canva, you don't have the professional option, then that's going to probably give you some issues to opening it. So I would default to PDF, and then as soon as I download it, now I have it, and I can put it in my downloads, and I can go ahead and open it in Photoshop. So I can literally come back here. I could come File, Open, go to my right here to my downloads. There is my Saints logo. It's going to open up at 300 dpi, 14 inches. Might be a little too big, but that's okay. We'll resize it later. And there we go. So this is our high resolution vector Saints logo, right? Now, I obviously did not remove the background in the program, but I like to show you guys how to do that here in Photoshop, and it's a very simple step. We talked about earlier about all the different tools that we have here, so let's go and get one of the probably the most used tools here in Photoshop, which is your magic wand. We can start with that. Another one that we could use is our magic eraser tool right down here. So whether I'm using the magic wand or I'm using the background eraser, right? The background eraser is going to allow me to do one click and it will delete my background in all the areas where the background is going in and out and touching. So if I click here, my background is gone. Now, it's all that is white that is in connection with the background, right? So it didn't delete the white that's in here. So that's obviously a decision that you would have to make, whether this is in fact a 3-color design or is this a 2-color design. So the white remains if in fact this logo requires to be white here, because remember, if we delete this, right, then what's going to happen is the background of whatever shirt you're going to put this on will come through this open area here. So if the logo is not supposed to have, let's say, navy here, and you're going to press this on a navy shirt, well, now that navy is going to come through this part right here, and maybe that's not what you want. So good thing about all these programs is you always have an undo button. So we're going to undo that step, and we're going to leave the white in place. Okay, so this is a good start here. We're looking at what these tools can do. The option of resizing the file, this is another thing that most customers struggle with, right? Because when you have an image that has a white background, the program looks at this file as the background and the image being the size, when in reality the size is really just the size from here to here, not from here to here, correct? So we're going to go to our moving tool up here. And then when we click on our moving tool, just make sure that you guys have your show transform controls up here. Make sure you have that selected, checked, because that's going to put a box around the item and you guys are going to be able to see, right, and resize it manually here if you want to. Or you can come here to transform, right? We talked about this area here earlier. So the way that I set up my Photoshop view is that I have properties, right? So this is going to help me transform my file in size. So what I'm looking for to do is I could flip the file horizontally or vertically. I could also change the size right here by inputting a value. I could click here, I could put 9 inches, right? So I can resize it, and this little button right here that has the little chain link, this is going to make sure that whatever I select here, it proportionately adjusts the height as well. Because if this isn't checked, what's going to happen is it's going to go to only adjust the width, which let's say we go 11. Well, now it's stretching it, isn't it? So we don't want that, right? So let's undo that and make sure that we have this link clicked, and anytime we make an adjustment, whether it's an adjustment on the height or an adjustment on the width, it will proportionately adjust the other one so that it does not distorts the file. And so my moving tool is also helpful for moving the item around. So like if I want to move my item around, that's kind of what I would use my moving tool for. I could literally click and drag it around and move it wherever I want to. I could also make that adjustment manually. I don't necessarily need to have it done over here. I could actually do it here. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to come here to image and image size because we're not adjusting the entire canvas and that. So that's one option that you do have here, where you're able to manually adjust it or adjust it here in transform. If I adjust it here, I'm going to be adjusting the width of the canvas together with the image inside. So that's not really an accurate way to adjust my size, because if I come in here and I say, you know, this image is 14 inches, well, no, the image isn't really 14. It's 14 from here to here. In fact, this image is only 9 inches inside of a canvas that happens to be 14. So those are the kind of things you may want to just kind of refresh on and get used to it when you're working here in Photoshop. There's a big difference between what is an image and what is the canvas, and that is the difference. Just like if I come back in here and I look at my canvas, what am I doing here? I'm looking at the canvas. So 14.22 is really from here to there. If I decide to make the canvas, let's say 22 inches, it will make the canvas obviously 22, and then my image is obviously inside of that canvas, and it's only 9 inches. So this is really helpful when we decide to do things like, let's say I'm printing something for sublimation or I'm printing something for DTF. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to gang up all our images so that we could send it to the printer. So we start with obviously a transparent background, and then we size that canvas to whatever our print gang sheet is going to be. So our gang sheet here is, it could be 22 inches by 12, or it could be 22 inches by 36. So we'll kind of go over all of those points a little later. So this is just so that we discuss the issue with your vectorization of your files and your high resolution and how to check that resolution. I think that's what we want to kind of focus on right now. And then we'll kind of jump into those other areas. So I'm going to switch back over here to my raster file. Again, raster files, like photographs and this kinds of, high resolution files, we cannot really vectorize that. There's just, the vectorization is a process that does not work with these types of files. Like say a picture of a person or a photograph or any of those kinds of things. You're not going to be able to vectorize the file because it's not really an object like a shape or a text or anything like that. It doesn't really have sharp lines. It has gradiences and that sort of thing you're not able to vectorize. Okay, so that being said, the same logic applies. In here, and I could check the size that I want, and I could do that. I want to make sure that my little chain link here is connected so that it makes it proportional to my adjustment. Okay, and remember, this is the same logic here applies. This is my canvas, so whatever adjustments I need to make on my canvas, I kind of need to do it in two ways. Like if we're back over here with the Saints logo, I adjusted the canvas size over here, right? So another way that I could adjust the canvas here, other than here, I could also adjust it here. I could come to this tool, and this is basically my cropping tool right here. So once I click on my cropping tool, I get these little bars right here in the corners and in the middle, and then this allows me to adjust my canvas size. So if I want to make my canvas size bigger, I could do that. If I want to make it wider, if I want to make it longer, I could do all of that. So whether you're adjusting the canvas from over here or you're adjusting it manually using the crop tool, either or, you're still able to do that. Just remember that when we're working in Photoshop, we're clicking a tool and we have to do another function. We have to click that tool function before we move on. So if I wanted to readjust here manually, Then I went to moving tool, which is also my adjustment tool. And if I'm in crop, then this is my cropping tool. So I'm only going to have this tool highlighted if I am in here doing that. So as far as the difference between those two files, again, that's pretty much what we're going to cover there. And then I'm just gonna leave you guys with one last thing about your vector files. If your file has extremely low resolution, you no matter what we do, we're not able to fix it. Like, let's say this file right here, right? So this file right here um, is also um, something that you could try to vectorize, but because of the low resolution, you can actually see that it's distorting the image. So you're really not able to vectorize it accurately. And the only solution that you have in this case here is to recreate this entire thing. Now, Photoshop and Illustrator and Canva, these are all tools that are designing tools, and you can probably, obtain the banner, the squares, the shapes, all of these things. You're going to have to search for them individually out there on Google. And then little by little, the crown, the splashes of light, all these things, the stars, all these are things these are objects that you can locate and bring them in. And do a layout, and everything else is just text. So it isn't really that uncommon for people to do that. But the question is, you're now spending above and beyond time that perhaps your project is not paying you to do. So we want to make sure that we use these tools like vectorizing programs and things like that. But these are programs that are going to cost you money. These are things that take time and money to repair and fix. So you have to make sure that your customer understands that. There's a level of time that sometimes people do not calculate into the job, and time is one of those factors that are extremely important. So can you recreate a file like that? Absolutely. Is it going to take you 45 minutes to 2 hours? Possibly, depending how complex and everything it is. But it will require research of finding all of those elements and bringing them into Photoshop or Canva and literally creating that logo from zero. So again, once again, not everything unfortunately can be vectorized, because of the condition that the file is in. I mean, the smaller the file, the harder it is to vectorize that file. So, that's something that you have to kind of put in the language of your communication with your customer to make sure that he or she understands, hey, I need the file with the highest resolution as possible. And, if they cannot understand that, you're going to obviously, there's ways that you could kind of come across and explain that then it's going to come out pixelated, it's going to come out in poor resolution in the print, and no one wants to take those chances. So that's as far as the main difference between what is a vector versus what is a raster. So again, they're very similar files, but they're different in the fact that you're not able to vectorize one, but you can vectorize the other, and that's basically the simplest way that I could explain it to you. We kind of covered in these steps how to delete the background. We can delete just about any background as long as that background it's not connected into a section of the design that you're working with, because as soon as you delete that, then that'll go away, and then it gets complicated at that point. So let's go over next on how to resize our canvas, how to resize our files, how to copy our files, how to create what we considered a gang sheet, and then I'll see you guys on the next chapter. Okay, so now we're going to start manipulating this particular file that we have here. So there's lots of things we could do in Photoshop with this particular file. We could change the colors. We could eliminate the colors. We could add new colors. We could add text to this image. We could add a background. So let's just start with the most basic steps here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the canvas bigger so that we can work in here. So we can maybe add some text on the bottom. So remember what I said before, we're not going to change the image size, we're going to change our canvas size. So our canvas is really what we want to change. So let's already have an idea of what size this canvas is going to have to be. So we're going to go, it's about 8 inches right now, about 8.5. So let's try to make that 10 wide, and then let's also make it bigger down below the image area. All right, so here we are. So to zoom in and out, one of the things that most customers always ask me about, how do I zoom in and out, right? So there's always a magnifying glass tool here, which is a zoom tool, right? But I'm always constantly, zooming in and zooming out. So when I'm zooming in, I want to use the Alt key in your keyboard, and the mouse, the wheel on the mouse, right? That lets me go in, lets me go out while I'm holding the Alt key. That's one little trick that you guys need to kind of start using. Um, Another thing that I want to do is be able to have room in here to add what I need to do. So I could, as long as I'm using my moving tool, I could literally just kind of move my image around. So now that I have some room down here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and let's start with the text tool, right? So we're gonna select the text tool. It's just regular horizontal, right? We're gonna click in here, and we're gonna type away. We're gonna create a let's say the name here is gonna be, oops, a little time delay here, going a little faster. Uh, let's call them the Florida Tigers. Okay, so let's bring that right under here. There we go. Okay, and we're going to move up the tiger a little bit higher, and then we're going to do that. Now, these little purple lines that I have coming up here that you see there, these purple lines are lines that if you're not getting them when you're moving your objects around, you need to go over to View, down to Show, and these are smart guides, okay? So just make sure you have this clicked so that they actually do come up when you're moving things around. So now that I have the logo that I want to put here, the text under my logo, I now have over here under layers, I have the layer 1, which this is my tiger logo, and then the text, the font that I just created. Notice that it actually has a T here telling you that this is a text element, not a picture. It's a text. So obviously, as soon as I am here messing around with this text, I'm going to get my character to come up automatically because this is an actual text. So what do you do to text? Well, to text, we could change the style of the font, right? So let's say we're looking at something like that, or let's go down here to something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more collegiate. So I guess we could select that one. And then we could also change the size. So we could let's go to 60 points. It's a little big enough for this. I could also, lets me click in the corner, and I could make it bigger, right? So I could do that. So notice that by adjusting it manually, it went from 60 to 67 points. So there you go. You can, just figure out what it is that you want. If your customer wants the text to be, if he wants the text to actually be the same size as the tiger head, you could do that. You can just move it around until you get it in the size that you want. So lots of things we can continue to do here. Like, for example, we could change right here, we can change the color. So if we click there, which is the black of the color, we could, let's say we want to make it a red, or let's say we want to make it the orange or the navy that we have here, right? So we don't need to pick a color from here. We can just come here and go, yeah, I want to use that orange, or I want to use this navy, right? Right here. So we'll go orange here, okay? And we click OK. Then another thing we could do is we could add an outline or a stroke around this text to make it stand out more. So for that, we're not going to find that here. We're going to find it in here. And this bar right here, this has to do with our font. Double click, and we're going to get this layer style menu, and we're gonna actually look at all the stuff we have here. We have stroke right here. This is what an outline would be, or a stroke. We're gonna click on that, and we may want to just add a stroke that is the same color that we have with the tiger. Let's say the navy, and we're gonna click OK for that color, and then we're gonna change the size. So we could make it bigger. And obviously we can select inside or outside. So outside usually is for the stroke. We're going to keep it on normal. I mean, there are many options that we could do. We could make it dissolve. We could make it different saturation color. We can make it a lot of different things, but let's stick to something simple for now. So I'm going to click OK, and then this is my font right here with my outline right here. So notice that now we have our font, and then we have effects, and under effects we have stroke. And I could turn these on and off if I want to. If I'm not happy with it, I could create another stroke so that my customer can choose whether he wants a navy stroke or a white stroke or no stroke at all. I could make those changes, and I could forward them to them. I could also add a background to my tigers, and I could make whatever effect I want with that. So I could, let's say, click over here, add a layer. So we're going to come here, we're going to add a layer. So we have this is where our layers are. So we need to add a layer. Here's my layer 2 right here. I could come in here. I could go to edit, fill, and I'm gonna add a color here. I'm gonna add a gray. Okay, so this is my background, right? Except that it's in the foreground. So we're going to click, drag it, and we're going to bring it down to here. Oops, cancel here. There. Okay, so we're going to click and drag and bring it down. So beneath all of these right here. And from here we could color whatever we want. We don't have to leave it in gray. We could double click, and we're going to get that layer style menu that we got before, except that now it's for this gray background that we have here. And we could add a gradient if we want, a gradient background. We could select all kinds of presets that we have here. We could go with something like that. And obviously that will be good. And like any other layer attribute, I could take it off, I could put it on. I could even change that if I want to. I can change the angle in the gradients right here. I could make it go in one direction or another. So I can do a lot of different things to that, right? I could change the color if I want to. I could change this color. So I can come here and I could go, okay, let's make it just more like a purple, right? So I can do that and click OK. And as you can see here, this is the blue, goes from blue to here and to purple. So we're going to click OK, we're going to click OK, and we're back with our image right here. So these are things that you can kind of do with that. I could also do this effect of the gradients. I could do it to any object that I have in here. I could do it to my text. I could double click here, get back in there, and I could literally do a gradient overlay. So if I want to do a gradient overlay on the words Florida Tigers, this won't affect the stroke though. It's only affecting the text itself. So I could come in here. Let's say I want to do some pinks, right? Or if I don't, I want to do some blues, just so that we could have something like blue, something like that. I could come to basics. Let me see on basics. We got black and white, but let's do more like a green. There we go, something like that. I think it's going to go a little bit better. And like I said, we could change this teal if we're not happy with this teal, and we could make it match up what we already have. So we can click here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this one to it right here, and there we go. So now we do have more or less the same effect that we have here. Um, and it's an independent effect. So it's literally right here under gradient overlay. If I don't like it, if I want to change it, I could do that. And once I have it done, this is the option that we have next is to save our file. So let's say that this file is ready. This is what we want to use. What we want to forward to our customer. This is what he's going to want. If I go to File and Save As, what's going to happen is it's not going to let me save it as any particular file that I want. Like it's not going to let me. It can let me do it as a PDF, but it's not going to let me do a PNG or a JPEG. Not going to let me do any of those, right? Because the layers that are here. So until you group these layers, right, you're not going to be able to save it as a PNG or any of the other formats. But what I do recommend is, since you guys are going to be working again with these files regularly, what I would recommend is to do your first save, um, do it as a Photoshop file. That way you can get back in and you'll have your file with all of your effects right here, all your layers separated, right? Because once we group these files together, once these layers are grouped together, you're not going to really have a way to separate them later. So keep them as layers for as long as you can. Save your version, and then that's the version for you to work with, and then create another version and send it to your customer. So let's say I want to do my Tiger vector file in Photoshop file, perfect. And then I already saved it. Then I'm going to right click here, and then I got a bunch of options here. So what I'm going to do is what I want to do here is I want to get all those layers and I want to group them together, right? So I can click here and I could merge visible. Literally everything that's visible will be merged together, right? And there, now we have one complete file, right? And then this is the file that we're going to save for my customer. And we're going to click Save As, and then now we have a whole bunch of options here. We have PNG, we have PDF, we have a JPEG, we have a bunch of ones that we can send to our customer, and the customer can view it too, because you want to send it in a PNG or a PDF so that your customer can open it in their phone or open it in an email attachment. If you send it as a Photoshop file, then the customer's not going to be able to open that file. But that file, like I said, is for you to do your works. So so here I'm going to do my PNG, and then this is going to be my PNG version, save. And obviously it's already got a file with that name, so I'm going to name it part 2 and then save. All right, so that that is what I'm that's what I wanted to cover in this particular section, on regarding background, regarding text, and that kind of stuff. One of the first things that I want to touch on next is where do you get text from? The styles of fonts, where do you get them from when you're working with Adobe? Well, the best thing about Photoshop and Illustrator is that they do give you fonts for free. And once you're already paying for Photoshop, which is a hefty monthly amount, you want to make as much use of your program as possible. And one of those things is Adobe Fonts, which is it's free, and you can get all the download fonts that you want. And as soon as you download them, they'll be available right here in your program. Okay, so we're going to cover the option of downloading fonts from our Adobe account. So remember, when we have a Photoshop subscription, we are able to use the fonts and download them for free. So let's make the most use out of our subscription. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open up a blank canvas, and we're gonna start by selecting the size that we want. If you don't have any presets here, these are my most go-to, really. We could do 7 by 5, 300 dpi. Very important that we create everything in a resolution of 300 dpi. RGB, preferably. Why? Because eventually we will save this file as a PNG. So our color mode has to be RGB and not CMYK or any other format. Okay. The transparent background, also very important. Okay. So we're going to click create. Here's our empty canvas. We're going to start by going to our text tool. Now, if you don't find your text tool here, it could be because you haven't prepared your toolbar accurately. So just go to your edit, down to toolbar, and right here we're going to be able to add all the tools that we want. So as you can see right here, we have the tools on this side over here that come up right here. So my moving tool is my number one go-to tool. I'm using that tool all the time. I'm resizing, I'm moving it around in my canvas, the image. So that's important, right? And then from there down, you have everything else that you need. Your magic wand, your cropping tool, your marquee. Those are all the majority of the tools that you're going to use the most. Your eraser tool, as you can see, all of them are here listed, and they're all right here, okay? Also, keep in mind that when you have a little block like this of several things, like for example, here in your crop tool, right? You have 3 different tools that belong to this type of function. So you see this little corner right here that's pointing outward. If we click on that, we can get access to the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel. I'm going to show you. So if I click here, here they are. So always look for that little thing. Like in the case of the font, so what else do I have? I have vertical font and I have horizontal. Most of us use horizontal font all the time. So this is the one that's going to pop up the most. Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to type any word just to see. Let me move it around, place it right here. Okay, so remember what I said, when you select a tool, your parameters of the tool pop up here. So this will tell me what, or right here under character, okay, so under transform. So here on the top area here, you see this is the style of the font. This is it right here, Roman. So if we have any other choices, they don't pop up right here as a drop down. But I could access all my different fonts right here. These are all the fonts that my computer has, okay? Either because they came with Windows or with my MacBook or whatever the case may be. These are all my standard fonts. And in here, there's going to be fonts that I've added. As you can see right here, this is an Adobe font because that's the Adobe logo, right? And these other logos right here are logos that may have come with my computer. They're standard fonts that came with them. And other ones are going to be things that I've downloaded from other websites, right? So let's go ahead and go to Adobe Fonts and download a few fonts here. Let's go to Adobe. So we're going to type Adobe Fonts, and we're going to get right to that. We're going to sign in using our account. And this will allow you to upload those fonts onto your program so you can view them instantly, okay? So here we go. Let's look for browse all. Let's see what we're looking at. So right here, we have kind of like a quick go-to on the most popular ones. So we can go here, and then we can look for, let's say this one right here. Modern Love. Let's go with that. And then we could just simply add this one right here. So what we could do is we could just simply say, okay, let's pick the one that we want. Let's say this one right here, Modern Love caps, or then we'll do add. And we're going to switch back. This little message tells us that we have already added Modern Love caps. Okay, so
We're going to minimize. We're going to come back here. Going to highlight this one. Let's see if we can locate our Modern Love that we just downloaded. So let's scroll down to the M's. And here we go. All right, so here's our Modern Love, right? Boom. Click OK. So here's our Modern Love. And we could basically just adjust whatever size we want of this, right? So this is kind of like a cursive font. It's we could do a lot of things with this. We could actually once we click on the font tool right here, we could come up here to this little warped little T and click on it. It'll give us an option to arch it a little bit. So here we go. I'm gonna click OK. So let's click here, get it right in here, right? And this font now pretty much has the capability of we could change it in whichever way we want. We could change the color, right? We can change the size of it. We could do whatever we want there. Another thing we could do is check on the separation. Right, a lot of people don't know what this little area here is. So if I want to make it so it separates a little bit more from each other, you know, individually, I can group them closer together. I could even go very, very close, right? So let's say you don't have a lot of room, but you really like that text on your sublimation cup or whatever you want to put it on your tumbler. Maybe we can get it as close as we can, just kind of get all these letters closer together. So that's what this little area can do. We could also adjust the height of that and obviously the size and the style. So here we have caps and grunge. This is part of the same family of the fonts that we downloaded. So if we want to try what caps is going to do for us, well, that's what that's going to do. And then this one is going to be this other one right here, which looks almost like a distressed effect. Okay, that's it. Many other things we could do here with the font. Remember, we could double click here. We could go to the style. And what can we do with the style? Well, we could do an overlay of a color, which you can do that already here. But here what we could do is we could do a gradient overlay, right? And we could do something like that, right? Or we could select the color that we want. We can click right here. We can go to our, let's say we'll go to our blues. We could just kind of select something like that. Click OK. And we get that kind of an effect that we're looking for. And these effects, anytime I double click on them, I could get back in here and I could change a lot of different things. I could change the order in which it kind of does. Like I could do kind of like an angle change here where it could be on the lower end, right? And I could have this color merging into this color, which you could do. I could add a third color if I want to in here. I could, if I don't really like this blue, I could click right here and I could change that blue to a darker blue if I want to, right? So it would kind of look like that, right? I could separate that. I could separate the scale, you know. So hey, you know, I want to make it more defined or less defined, right? I could do a lot of that stuff, and I could make it fade away. So this is just another option that we have with that. And then this font carries all these additional effects with it until I decide to not make any further changes to it, and I right click on here. And remember, these are the moments where we have to kind of rasterize the type, meaning what we're going to do is we're going to just make the changes that we've made permanent. So once I click here, that's going to make this no longer a text. So I can no longer adjust this as a text. It's become an object with this effect. And then the final change that we can make to it would be right click and then rasterize that layer style, meaning after I do this, we can't make any other changes to it. So once I click there, it now became an actual object. And the only thing I can do with this object is change the size. But I can no longer adjust anything else when it comes to the, you know, if we can warp it, if we can change the effect, we would have to then start everything from scratch. So let's say we're not happy with that effect, and at the end we decide to make another change. We double click again, and then we get back into layer,
style, and we change gradient overlay one more time, and let's say we decided to get away from blues and we're going to go into purples, and we're going to go here, and this is our option right here, right? So we can continue to do this, and every time we can say this is our final revision, we're done, right click, rasterize layer style, boom, our object is done. So there we're here. So as I said, these are free options that we have with Adobe. So get in there and look for all the fonts that you want to get, because a lot of them are things that we use every day, and they have probably a version of a font that you're looking for, if not a couple of each that you can choose from. Okay, so that's Adobe fonts, and that's the section here that we've covered. And I'm going to move on to another section. I think what we want to cover next is going to be how to basically just do the layout for any of the applications, right? It could be sublimation, or it could be DTF. So let's talk about ganging up. That's our next section here on our chapter. Okay, so let's continue here with ganging up. Okay, so let's say that we have to prepare something in a gang up sheet for DTF, which is probably one of the things that we're doing more these days than anything else. This will also apply, obviously, for anything else that we're doing, whether we're doing sublimation, or we're doing white toner printing, or print and cut in your white format printer. All we're doing is basically preparing the artwork. So these are basic functions which we're going to use throughout any application at all, right? We have to keep in mind that some applications require a transparent background, while other applications do not, right? So how can we tell the difference? Well, the main difference is if you're going to be printing something with white in it, right? If the application that you're doing, like in the case of DTF or white toner printers, right? Those are printers that come with white ink in them. So you are going to print your colors and also your white layer. So anything that has white in the art that we're preparing will come up in that application. So if you send it to a DTF printer and you have white in your design, let's say that I just simply add here I'm going to go ahead and add a rectangle around the name, right? And I'm going to color that rectangle in white, right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put it in white, right? I'm just going to eliminate no stroke, just a single rectangular, right? And I'm going to rearrange the location right here. I'm going to move it under my word, my name right here. Okay. So if I don't want this white area to print in let's say in an application of a white toner printing, or in the case of DTF, well, then I can't have white there, can I? It's gonna print. The printer will see the white and will print it. So we don't really want that. Now, this doesn't matter when you're doing sublimation, because a sublimation, it's a process of CMYK. So you're printing only your colors on a white sheet of paper. Same thing happens when you're doing a poster or a photograph or anything like that. Your paper is white. Your printer doesn't print white. So it doesn't matter that you have a white background or any other color background. But in this case, let's focus on white, which is one of the ones that are going to give us the bigger headache. In this particular case, we do have to focus on making sure that this file doesn't have a background, because we're ganging it up specifically for DTF, right? So let's add something else to this design. Let's go File, Open. We're going to go to, we're going to go here, and right over here, we're going to go, let's get that football in here, which is kind of goes well. I'm going to open that. Now, when you open a picture or a file in Photoshop, everybody always says the same thing. Why can't it open in the place where I'm working in? It doesn't. It opens up the file in a new window, and then it's up to you what you want to do with this file. If I want to bring it here, all I have to do, it's a click and drag process. But you're not going to click and drag the file. You're going to come here to your layer, and you're going to grab it, right? Hold my mouse, and I'm going to bring it right over here to this section, and then I'm going to drop it right here. Now, obviously, this file is way bigger than my other document, but that's okay. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to look for that corner. I'm going to bring it down. Now, this resizing that I'm doing, it's important to remember that I'm doing this resizing proportionally. So that's important. This area right here, this key that I mentioned earlier today, you've got to make sure that you're checked on there, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to proportionally adjust it. That means you're basically just kind of changing the size of it, right? So here we go, right? So we got it. I moved it in to kind of snug right there. So I got my little thing here that I could do my, I don't know, I can do my sublimation with this. I could do it on a mug. I can do it on a tumbler. I could do all kinds of stuff. But let's just assume that this is going to be a DTF application, right, file. And what I'm going to do next is I have to basically group them together. Now, this little thing that I added earlier today for the explanation of that, we don't need that, right? So let's just right click and click delete layer. So it's gone, right? So now I have two layers here, this one and this one. Let's group them together. So we're going to hold down our control key, click here. We got both of them selected. Another way that we could select those two is just simply to, do this and select them both, right? See how they're both highlighted here? That means they're selected. We're going to right click and we're going to merge the layers. Right? Now, merging layers is different than merging visible, and it's also different than flattening an image. Right? We don't want to flatten the image, because flattening an image would immediately put a background on there, typically a white background. We don't want that. So we want either to merge the layers that we've selected or to merge all the visible layers that are in there. But we don't have anything else, so let's just stick to merging layers. So here we are. So now if I need to proportionally adjust this down to, like, let's say a left chest, which is about 3.5 inches, I could do that, right? Here we go, 3.5. That's our standard size for a left chest, right? If I want to make it, let's say, a little bit bigger, well, for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer you guys to going over the chart that we've created that basically gives you sizes of shirts and suggested sizes for the back, for your left chest, etc. And then just kind of, these are suggested. So for example, if I'm working with a large or an XL shirt, most people will work with a 10 or a 10.5 particular size image for a full front or a full back. Typically that would be our go-to size. If you're doing a medium or a small, most people go to a 9-inch or a 8.5 for a small, things like that, right? And then obviously there's sections for youth and kid sizes and things like that. So just remember to go to that and double check those sizes, and then just go to that for your go-to stuff, right? So let's go ahead and just do the quick gang up as quickly as we can, right? So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to adjust our canvas, right? So let's go to image, canvas size. And this is just your canvas now. This area right here, this checkerboard area back here, that's what we want to change. So typically, if we want to do, if we're working with a DTF that prints 12 inches, we would do a 12-inch, right? And if we're doing a 24, then obviously we would do either 24 or 23 or 22, whatever we need to fit into the film. So if the film is 24, we would want to make this canvas size 22. So there's no conflict at the time of printing, because we can't print to the very, very edge of the 24-inch film. And on top of that, those films are never exactly 24 inches. They're usually 23.5, 23.75. So we want to be able to leave some space on either side. So let's just stick to 22 by 36. And these arrows that are pointing upward, what they're going to do is they're going to expand around the design. We don't want that. I want to do more like, I want to start up here and increment from here down. So that will be selecting this corner right here. So this is how that canvas is going to grow. And then just go click OK. So I'm going to use my Alt key and my mouse to kind of pull back a little, see what I'm dealing with here. There we go. So this is 22 by 36.
So how much can I add in here? That's the key, right? So what I'll do is to begin copying and pasting. Now, copying and pasting on Photoshop is not the same as when your Windows program where you right click and you have copy and paste. No, we duplicate here. So we right click and we go duplicate layer, right? That's one option. And then it's going to make a copy of that one. But, you know, they're funky like that. But where did the copy go? Well, it's literally right under there, right? So let me zoom in so you guys can see that a little bit better. All right, let me just kind of center that a little bit. Okay, so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so when I make a duplicate, it creates a duplicate literally right on top of it. So we got to click it, move it over, right? And these particular areas right here that we see right here, these little lines that you see, these are my guides, right? So go to view, right? And then move over to your show, and then you'll see your smart guides pop up. And those are the smart guides that you need checked. They need to be checked in here in order for them to come up. This is going to help you align, it's going to help you center, etc. Another option that I have is to use my keyboard to make my copies. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to hold down my Alt, and then I'm going to move over. And then I'm going to just add one more right here, right? Because I don't think I can fit a third one in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click here, cover all of these, and then let's just make them the same space among each other. So we're going to click here, we're going to come right here, and we're going to go click here, and we're going to center them. So there you go. So that's that. So that means that here I could do 5 across, 1 row, select both of those rows, hold down my Alt key, drag it down. Here we go. So now we have a whole bunch of little rows in here, right? And then let's do a few. If I want to make them, let me delete this row. And then what I'll do is I'll do 15 of these, right? And then I'll make one more copy. But this copy is going to get turned into a 10-inch full back. There we go. And then move them up. And then Alt, drag, click and drag. We do the same thing. Here we go. And then we'll do one more. Here we go. So now we have 6 of these, 15 of these, right? So if I just want to make, let's say, the equal amount, I'll delete this row, maybe add a couple more of these, you know, boom. So if I want to make the equal amounts, it'll be 10, right? So that means I have to add 4 more of these to come up with 10 left chest and 10 of the back. So I'm going to go to my cropping tool, and then I'm going to go, okay, let's make some extra space down here. Perfect, right? And there we go. And then let's do 4. Let's see if we can fit these 4 in here. Can we? Let's see. So these are kind of a little tight here together. So let's move them up, right? And that's what it's all about. Just trying to make as much room as I can so that I could cut around that area. I don't want to get too close now, right? I want to make sure I got enough room in here. Now if I got to come down a little bit on this one, I'll come down a little bit on this one. So what I'm using is I'm using my up and down arrows on my keyboard, right? I could also use my mouse, but when you're making small movements like that, and you're trying to clear the space between a very tiny area, I would just select the image and just use my moving up and down arrows on my keyboard, okay? That just works way better, okay? So there I go. So I got my 10 full backs, and then I have my 10 left chests. So what do I have here? I have a whole bunch of layers, right? So we talked about this before. So what happens when I try to save this file when I have layers in it, right? So my choices are not going to be the standard choices. So this is all I got, right? Can't work with any of these. I can't send my document to my DTF printer as a PDF. I have to send it as a PNG, correct? So let's cancel here. Let's right click any one of these. And let's right click here, and then basically we want to merge everything that's visible here, right? So here we go. Visible versus down would be from here down.
but visible is better because technically everything has to get grouped together. So we go merge, got one single file. It is a little longer. It tells you right here, it's 21.5 by 44.75. So it's almost 45 inches long. Okay. So we're going to go File, Save As. We can now select a few more options. So let's go PNG because that's what we want. We're going to name our file. So we're going to call this one football. Boom. And then we're just going to call it 10 just for the quantity that we got here. So let's do that. And we could put 10 pieces. There we go, right? Hit enter. We got it covered. And this is basically our PNG file ready for printing, right? So we're going to just select that. And we're good to go. Our file is now ready for us to send to our DTF printer. So that's as far as we go on this particular chapter. Let's keep going. Okay, so the final step that we're going to do here with this Photoshop class is going to be something that is referred to as a clipping mask. Okay, so let me close off of here that we're done with this. We're going to get a new file, just something small enough so we could do this effect. So this effect is when you want to make some kind of a overlay, and the best way to explain it would be, let's say we want to take a particular shape and we want to superimpose a picture over it. Okay, now we need to start with the shape of the object that we want to do that. So let's just pick something like a font, let's say, right? And we're gonna do numbers this time instead of a name. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go right here to our text tool. It doesn't matter the color. It really doesn't matter the effect either. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just come up with how about a 305? Okay. So we can all understand area codes. So let me, I'm just gonna color it black. Okay, but I don't want something distressed. I want something solid. So what I'll do is I'll go to something like this. Let me see what I got here. Let me pick something nice and bulky. Let's see. Scroll down here. I think I had something that I downloaded recently. That has to be a little more solid because what we want is we want to put a picture over that area. And if we put something thin, then we're not going to be able to really see or appreciate the picture. So I think this one would be, let's see over here. I think this one's good, but the numbers are too close together. So what are we going to do? We're going to come here to our character option. And instead of having a -75, we're going to probably put it like a 50% and maybe a little closer. Let's do more like a 10%. Okay, there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the size of that. So we're going to hold the shift key and let's just try to make that a little bit bigger. I think making them a little closer would work. So let's go to like a -10. There we go. Something like that. So we're gonna place this. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, that way you guys can see the effect taking place better. All right, so we've made our text. See, right here is a text. It's not an object yet. We're gonna then bring in something to superimpose over the surface of that, like a picture, right? So for that, we're gonna Google something. So since it's area code 305, we're gonna go to Miami skyline. Okay, sure, at night. Let's go to at night. Go to images, something colorful. This or this. This should be good. All right, so we're gonna right click here and we're gonna save this file.
Let's see what this file is. Oh, it's perfect. It's a JPEG. Okay, perfect. You know, sometimes it's better to go to Google and in Google we could do a couple of things. We could do Miami skyline at night. Okay, so we could do that, right? We can select the image. So something like this would actually look pretty good, but I don't want just any. I want to go to tools, and what I want to do is I want to go to size, and I want to do large. So this one is a pretty good size image right here. So if you ever wonder what the size, of that image is, once we select it, it'll have a number here in this right lower corner. So anything in the thousands, it's really good. Okay, and it's good that this is a rectangular image. So we're going to right click here. We're going to save that file or that image, and we're going to bring it into our picture. So I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it right here in my designs area, and we're going to call it Miami skyline. All right, boom. All right, so let's switch from here back to here. We're going to go file, open. We're going to look for that image we just saved. Okay, so we're going to go right here. Where is that Miami? Here it is. Okay, so remember, it opens in a totally different area. Okay, so it's not here. It opened in its own window. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a JPEG file. So, it's okay. We don't need it any particular special way. A JPEG would do just fine. What I want to do is I want to click, drag it, and just bring it up here. Okay, so I'm basically what I'm doing is I'm placing it over the number. All right, so when I right click here, all right, and I'm going to have an option called create clipping mask. If I click that, what it's doing is it's basically wrapping itself around the font or the shape of the object that I have here. In this case, I happen to have a text, 305. So it's wrapping around the number 305. Okay, so I also, as long as I have this selected up here, see how this is highlighted right here? I could click and I could move it around. So if I want the moon, let's say here or here, right, or here, that will give me that. And if I don't want to move the moon at all, then I'll just move it out of place. But I think the moon makes that really nice right here. So I can move it around, like something like that. I think that's good, right? Okay, so right there, we're good. So as long as this image is composed of two layers, the font and the clipping mask image, you really can't save it as anything, you know, because it has more than one layer, like we discussed before. So if we are happy with the way this looks, right? This effect, the precision of the picture, all of that, the font of the text, that's another thing. If we still want to change the font of the text, we can't move on to our next step. We have to kind of stay in that step until we're ready. And our options here, could be something like that. Something like that. Let's see. Let's look for something. Let's look for another. Oh, there we go. Something like this. Something like that. Maybe bring them a little closer together. Now this looks really nice, but we can barely see the city. So we want something that can jump out at us a little bit better. Something like this. Boom. Something like that. It's a little funky, a little weird. So we got a lot of options to choose from. So let's just pick one. Let's go, like there. Let's do that. It's a little too big, so for the size that we've chosen. So let's just go. There we go. And you know what? We should stay with the one we had before. So let's just go up here. Yeah, let's go right here.
Yeah, let's stay here. So, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that other size that we had. Perfect. Right there. Yeah, let's stay with that. That looks pretty good. All right, we can still make a couple of other choices. We could select here, and then obviously we could bring them a little closer together. There we go, something like that. That's nice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to right click here. We're going to go merge visible. Okay, so both of these are together, and now my image cannot be changed. It's exactly the size of the image that I want. It's the position of the moon and the skyline. It's perfect. That's the font that I want. Not going to make any more changes. As you can see, it's become an object now. It's no longer a font and a picture. It's now one single image. And from here, the only other thing I can do is just maybe add a stroke around that area. So I'm going to double click. I get this layer style stuff. I'm going to go in here to stroke, and I could select the color of the stroke. So yeah, the stroke would be controlled right here. We could make it a little bit more pronounced or a little bit less pronounced. Let's go to a color that just kind of fades into something a little bit more like the skyline color, which will probably be kind of like a navy. So we could kind of do that, right? And click OK, and there we go. Now, we still have these effects that can be modified. So until we right click and we rasterize the layer, we're not going to be able to then, get away from these adjustments. So we'll just do rasterize layer. It's become one object, right? The outside and the inside are now, everything is one file. And there we go. Now we can just resize it to what we're looking for, on size, add in anything else we need, and then we're pretty much done. So this is basically your clipping mask option on Photoshop. So let me know any other questions, and I think we're done here. Let me know if you guys have any issues or anything like that. Reach out through our normal channels: email, phone call, WhatsApp, whatever you guys like to use these days. Thanks again for watching, and I really do appreciate you guys watching our videos and staying tuned for everything, all the content that we put out there. We really appreciate you guys out there. Thanks so much.